Today we'll be building a website for a coffee shop together using React and Tailwind CSS. This is going to be a basic one-page app. You can see the navbar right here. There is a Start Now button, a few images as cards describing the process, an About section, and at last, our Contact Us section. This is how it looks on the mobile. Here is the navbar. The processes are just turned into a column. The About Us section stayed the same, and then there is the Contact Us section. I hope you're ready to build this great website for our coffee shop, so let's get started. Okay, so starting for our project, I do have a separate folder opened dedicated to this video, and we'll be creating our project inside this one. To do that, we will run a command in our terminal, npm create wheat at latest. Here you will be asked to enter the project name, which for us will be coffee shop. Then just proceed, and you'll be able to choose from all the big development frameworks. We'll be choosing React for this one. I will only be using JavaScript. And now you can copy the top two commands, paste them in here. This will install all the dependencies needed inside that folder. And after that's done, I will open up this coffee shop folder that was created right here. Next, I'll open a terminal here. So this is still just the setup of our project. And I could run npm run dev to open our development server, but we still need to install Tailwind CSS. To install Tailwind CSS, you can come to their official website and start copying in the projects. We already created the React app, and now we do need to install Tailwind CSS. So I just paste these comments in here. Great, but that's not enough, because when I was setting up the project, I ran into some problems, so we still need to install some additional packages for Tailwind CSS to take effect. And those two will be installed by using npm install, and then the post CSS and the auto prefixer are what we need. And now that those are done, let's go back to the official website. Here we'll copy the tailwind.config.js content, and you will be able to find this file on the left side. This file was auto-generated when you install Tailwind CSS with those commands. I just select these all and replace them by this. And just to make sure that Tailwind truly does apply, I will put a comma here and say ./index.html. Now we made sure that Tailwind CSS will be applied no matter what. And one last thing to do is come into our source folder, come to our index.css. I will just delete everything from here. And from the website, you simply grab this content for the index.css, copy it, and paste it in here. And you are done with the Tailwind setup. Now just to clean things up, I will say Ctrl-A and then delete all of these from here. And then there is an extension called ES7 snippets for React. And you can say refc here. And then basically give a name to the component. This gives you the basic component layout. This is the extension that you need to install for these React snippets. I will also delete everything from our app.css. And if for some reason your Tailwind CSS is not working, please make sure to follow this article step by step. I found this online and it helped me out, because when I was first setting it up, I needed to run these commands exactly like this. And then for some reason it got fixed. There is a conflict between Vite and Tailwind CSS for some reason when it comes to React. But this article will be linked down in the description, so it shouldn't be a problem. Now with that done, I've implemented some Tailwind CSS in our app, and I've entered npm run dev to run our development server. And as you can see, Tailwind is all set up. I've also imported some images. These are the about, the weight, and all the hero images that you saw us use in the preview. I will move to our app.css and style the body here. I will reset the margin to be 0, its width will be 100%, and its min height will be 100 viewport height units. That's all I'm going to do in here. And then in our app.jsx, I will import ./app.css. To keep our work organized, I will create a new folder here called components. And inside that, we'll be starting off by creating the hero.jsx. I will call refc here, and it will be called hero. I want to give you a reusable component for the hero, so I will add in multiple parameters here. They will be deconstructed. The first will be title, then there will be subtitle, then description, button text, background source, and we'll be using these in our component to pass them as props so that we can fully customize it from the outside and make this component fully reusable. So I'll create a div here. They will have the class relative v full for a full width and an age screen for 100 viewport height units. Inside that, let's create another div. This will be the background image. The corresponding Tailwind classes for this will be the absolute positioning. It will be inset 0 and then some background settings, for example, background cover, background right bottom. Now you have to know that when working in Tailwind, by default you are working on a mobile first view. That's why it's background right bottom. This is only because the image I'm working with is not the best on the phone. And then after a breakpoint, which is the default medium breakpoint on Tailwind, it's background center. And that's not enough because we're using a prop here. So I'll also say style and then set the background image. The background image will simply be using backticks, URL, then parentheses, and then background source. This way, our background will be dynamic for this component. Now coming back to our app.jsx, I will simply import here the hero. And now I will create here a fragment because we'll be rendering multiple elements here. And then simply render here the hero. Let me give here some of the props, just like this. These are what will be present, but we are not using them yet. And we'll also import the hero image from here. So import hero image from, and then we have our images right here below the assets. So I will say .assets/images/hero.jpg. And as for the background source, I will simply say hero image. Now let's come back to our hero.jsx because we still need to create an overlay. And this overlay is going to be a div with the class name absolute, inset 0, just as the above div. It will have background black. And I will say opacity 30. This will make sure that this div is above our element and it will act as an overlay. You can see that it darkened the screen. And now we'll be moving on to creating the text on our hero.jsx. Let's create the div inside the main container. And we'll go through the corresponding classes together. First of all, it's going to be relative because if it holds an absolutely positioned element, then it's going to act as a parent. Flex enables flexbox. We set the flexbox to be a column instead of the default row. Then we center the content with the item center and the justify center. We set its height to be 100%, its text to be center, also the text to be white, and the px as padding on the x-axis, so padding horizontally for which is 1 rem unit. And now inside that, I've copied over our elements. There are quite a few, but they share some of the similar classes. For example, both the h1, h2 have text and then a value. This is 4XL, 2XL. This just gives the font size. And then on the medium, the font size changes. There is also a max width given here, font bold. So these are basically just the text settings. If you're familiar with Tailwind, then you should be able to get along with these. And then inside them, we have the title, the subtitle, and the description, all the props that I've passed in recently. And as for our anchor element, we have first of all inside the button text given. So whatever you pass in as a prop will be presented there. And then there is the text center. It will be uppercase, the basic text settings, but that's not what I'd like to show you. Instead, that we have a transition all. We have a background set, some width and height. Also, we are using flexbox to center the button text. On hover, we are giving it text yellow, and yet again, you have to say hover and then background white. The reason I'm going through this because it would take a lot of time to actually write these classes by hand, and you will have access to the source code and our GitHub repo link. And if you are familiar with Tailwind, then you should be able to get along with this. And on the left side, there we have it. This is our hero section completed. And if I come to our app.jsx and, for example, I put a 2 here, you can see that it's completely reusable because the text appears as I set it in the prop. Now I'd like to work on the navbar. As for the navbar, I create a new JSX called navbar.jsx in our components folder, and then let's work on that. I'll say ref C, this will create our basic structure. And before we move any further with this, I will create here a new terminal and then install something called React Icons. Since we're not using the font of some CDN, we'll be using a package called React Icons, for which you can find a website where you are presented with all the icons. And to do that, I say npm install React Icons. This way you'll have access to some very fancy icons that you can use throughout your website, and it's pretty lightweight after all. And up here at the imports, I now copied these imports over. So these are the FA shopping cart, FA search, FA cafe. These are font awesome icons, but you will be able to access material UI icons or whatever you'd like. And these are from the React Icons/FA library. Now for our navbar, I won't be going with a fully CSS navbar that's responsive, because while we are working in React, I can afford myself to use state management instead. And for that, we'll be creating a useState variable called isOpen, and then set isOpen. This is just the basic syntax, and then this will be equal to useState, and by default it will be false. If you're not familiar with hooks, all this does is the isOpen will grant us the value, and the set isOpen is a function that will let us set the value of useState, and then whenever this changes, the site will get re-rendered, or at least the component will get re-rendered, allowing us to display the opened navbar and the closed navbar. I will also create a function here called toggle menu, and then this will be equal to an arrow function. And I will call set isOpen here to be not isOpen. The navbar will be divided into 3 parts. One of them is going to be the home and our logo. Then there will be the nav elements on the middle, and on the right side there will be a shopping cart and the search icon. Now I've created a header here, and the class name for this will be header. It will be sticky, top 0, background white, there will be a little bit of shadow given. It will use flexbox to justify, and it's important that we are justifying between to make sure that the elements are pushed aside. And there are some basic paddings and a z-index of 20, it's very important. So inside the header, let's create our logo and our text. This will be a simple anchor element. Inside the anchor element, we have the FA Cafe tag, which is imported from up here. And this FA Cafe will render the icon and then a text between my cafe shop. As for its class names, there are some text settings, some flexbox settings, a gap of 5. This will set the gap between the icon and the my cafe shop text. And then a little bit of hover effect with the yellow 700 color. And now that we can start seeing things, I will come here and call the navbar above our hero element. And we also need to import it. And on the top, our navbar appeared. Now I've created our nav element here. This will contain our anchor elements. But for now, let's just go through the class name. And it's important to note that we are using backticks here. It will have the class nav, some font settings, and it's important that it's going to be absolutely positioned. On the medium is going to be display static, or sorry, position static. And you can see we are also, since it's position absolute on the mobile view, we are positioning it v full and then v auto above medium. It will also have a transition and a duration of 300 with an ease in. And the reason we are using backticks is because I just hit a space here and then $, and we are referring to the isOpen. So if the navbar is open, then the display is going to be block. Otherwise, the display is going to be hidden. These are built-in Tailwind classes yet again. And now moving on to our unordered list, because this will contain an unordered list, is going to be flexbox using flex call. Remember, this is on the mobile. But above the mobile view, it's going to be flex row instead with items center. And then if you open it up, the list elements are all going to be the same, except the href inside will have a different text. They have some border, the border on the yellow, but these are basic classes. I just show them to you right here. But what's important is that if you hover over it, then there will be a border on the bottom. Now this is great, but it's already hidden because the way I'm recording this is already on a mobile view. And to prevent that from happening, we need an opener for the mobile view. So above our nav element, we'll create a div here. This will be with the class name. On the medium size, it will be hidden. And then on the mobile, it will be flex and using items center. And then inside that, we'll create a button. Let's assign an on-click event for this. So on-click, it will toggle the menu. And as for its class names, it will have text 2xl. And the reason it's very important that we're working in React is because then I can do something like this. If the navbar is open, then we render the FA times. Otherwise, we render the FA bars. These are FA elements imported from the React icons, as you can see up here. And if I click this now, our navbar opens. I can close it up. So it's working perfectly, but we still need is some icons on the right side of our component, and these icons will be on the desktop view. So below our nav element, these are the icons that will be using the FA search and the FA shopping cart. They will be in a div. The width will be 2/12. They will be hidden on the mobile view, but from medium, they will be with the display flex. And then just some basic text classes. So with that, we are done with our navbar. Let's move on to something a little more simple, and this will be the footer. I'll create a new component in here called footer.jsx, simply call refc here, and this component is going to be extremely simple. As I said, it will only contain a div, and this div will have a width of 100%, some height set. It will use flexbox, justify, content center, and item center. It will have a black background, text center, font light, and all the other text settings right here. And this sign right here will provide us the copyright icon, and then the copyright text is right over here. So all I have to do now is copy this navbar import, change this to be footer, and then call the footer right around here. And just like that, we have our footer on the bottom. Moving on, I'd like to create another component. As I said in the preview, there will be a process section, so it will be called process.jsx. Let's import this just like we did with our footer. And then above our footer, I will simply call the process. As for the process, it will be passed in some parameters. So the first one will be title, and the second will be card data. As for this return, there will be a bunch of stuff returned here. First of all, there is going to be a wrapper div. This will be flexbox with a column, justifying center and the background white. It's pretty simple. And then there will be an age one, and this age one is going to display the title prop that's given there. And it will have some margin on the y-axis, some text settings, and text black. And there will also be a div with the flex and justify evenly, and flex row on not mobile view, so above medium view, there will be flex row. And inside this one, we'll be propagating another component which will rely on the card data. So let's come back to our app.jsx and simply give here the title. As for the title, I'll say our process. It already appeared down there. And we'll also be needing to pass in a card data. But what is a card data? What do I want to display there? For this, we'll be creating a constant variable up here in our app.jsx called card data. And this card data is going to be, well, not an object. It will be an array of objects, and each object is going to have a title, is going to have a description, and is going to have an image source. Now let me fill up this data. So these will be the three cards that I want to display, and I'll also just pass in here the card data. But I need to import the image sources, otherwise it will not display anything. It will keep throwing errors at us. Below the hero image, I will import these like this. There will be the order, wait, and enjoy. They are all from the assets/images. And there will be the order, wait, and enjoy.jpg. And since all three elements that I want to display here will be the same, I will create a new component. This new component is going to be card.jsx. I'll call refc here, and the card will get these values. So the first one will be the title, and then the image, source, and then the description. This will be the props it will receive. And as for the structure of this, there will be a wrapper div. This wrapper div is yet again going to use flexbox. It will align them in a column on the mobile view, and it will center them. And it will also have a gap of 5 and an mx of 8. Now, as for the structure of this whole card, there will be a div. This div will use flexbox. It will be aligned in a column, and it will justify everything to the center. There will be a gap and also an mx8, which means from the horizontal axis, from the sides, there will be 2 rem units of margin. And then there will be an image inside which propagates the image source, and then the alt will be referring to the title. The h2 inside will be referring yet again to the title, and then as for the p, you guessed it, it's going to be referring to the description. Now that this simple component is clear, we can go back to our process. Inside our process, I will open this div up, and since it receives the card data, I will say in curly braces here, card data dot map, and here we are mapping the card, and I will also refer to the index. This will be the key that we'll be giving. Whenever you're mapping data out like this, you have to give an element that you're rendering, and this time it's going to be our card. And since we are mapping, each element needs to have an identifier so that React knows how to render these. And that will be the key. And I will set the key equal to the I, which is the index of our map loop. So at the first element it will be 0, then it will be 1, 2, just like you would index an array, for example. But we are getting a little error here because we could not find name card, so we need to import it with a ./card. I can also refer to the other props that are passed in for the card, for example title. This will be equal to the card.title, and the card here is the current instance that we are going through with the map function, since the card data is going to be an array. I will do the same for the other two, for the description and the image source, which will be card.imageSource and then card.description. If I save this now, we do have a little bit of an error because our cards are not displayed, and that's because I put curly braces in here instead of parentheses. So I just remove these, and I'll also remove the semicolon from here, and we should be good to go. There we have our process section. Now all we have left is our about section, which I will create another component called about.jsx, call refc here, and then this about component will receive parameters. Those parameters are going to be the image, an overlay opacity with the default setting of the 0.5, title, subtitle, and the description. As for the layout of the component, it's going to be wrapped in a section which is going to be relative, vfull, age 96, and background cover and background center. As for its style, since we are passing in an image, the background image is going to be the URL with that image. Inside this section, the content for this is going to be a relative container with a z-index of 10. The text settings are pretty straightforward. They are using the title, subtitle, and the description. And as for the other classes inside the container, they are using some flexbox, hfull to center, and some text settings. So these are the basic Tailwind settings. And I will also like to add an overlay for this. This will be a black overlay just like we did on our hero section. This will have the style opacity referring to the overlay opacity. And now all we have to do is yet again come back to our app.jsx, and I will simply import it here. Instead of process, I will say about, and below our process, I will call the about section. We need to provide some props here, and an error is thrown to us because then I need to import the about image as well. The other are just some basic text. I leave that to you. You can copy mine or you can write your own. And I also override the overlay opacity because of our image. But now let's first of all import that image. So below our enjoy, I will simply import the about from the assets/images/about.jpg. If I scroll down now, there is our about section. It's all reusable. These are basically templates that you can use for your website if you want to. Now all we have left is our contact section. So of course I'm going to create another JSX called contact.jsx or fc here. It won't take in any parameters. And let's start building the layout of this. First, there is going to be a section. It will have the basic settings, just like the width 100%, background, and some PI and PX. And to see the process, I will also come back to our app.jsx, copy this about link, and then import it. So I'm importing the contact, and down below our about, I will call the contact section. Now inside this section, I've created a wrapper div. This wrapper div will have a max width set, an auto margin from the sides, and background white, and it will be rounded, and it will also have a shadow just to highlight it a little more. And inside that there will be an h2 with the basic text settings called contact us. Let's also create a form. This will be space y4, which will give some spacing from the y-axis between the elements. And then if I open up this field, this is a div. Each field will have a label. This will be the full name label. It will have the HTML4 set and the class name set for some basic text. And then each of them is going to also have an input. It will yet again refer to the full name. And they will have a width full, some padding set, some border, they will be rounded. On focus, their outline will be removed. There will be a ring 2 set, and there will also be a ring yellow 700. So if I focus into it, you can see that the color changes. And I will repeat this for the other form variables as well, the other form fields. So they will all have this same structure. Now all that's different from here is that we have a text area, but the settings are all the same. They do have the same focus, width, the same padding. It's really just that it's a text area here and I can resize it if I want to. And the last touch to our contact form is of course going to be our button. This button is going to be of type submit. It will have 100% width. It will have the basic background and text settings. And on hover, it will turn to yellow 700. It will also have transition and the duration of 300. It's that simple. So with this, our coffee site is fully done. It's just like I showed you in the preview. Now, during the building of this coffee shop, I did not want to always repeat myself and for you to watch me code down all those values, because after all, I'm just repeating myself with the same attributes through different settings. And I hope that was something that you liked about this video. If you did not, please make sure to comment it down below so I know that I should go over these classes in more detail or that I should change the style of these videos. And if you found value in this and would like to see more, please consider giving us a like, maybe even subscribe. And other than that, I hope to see you in the next one. Happy coding and God bless.